So, welcome to the Kick-Ass Midlife Method podcast. And I'm joined this evening by some women from the community, and there's lots of people hopefully will be listening to this when it's being played back. So, tonight's subject is why muscle is your life insurance policy, how building and maintaining muscle lets you age as a kick-ass woman. So, we're not just talking here about aesthetics. So, what we're going to cover is why muscle is not just about your aesthetics. It's absolutely the key kind of tissue organ to optimize for longevity. The threat of muscle loss in perimenopause and menopause, skeletal mass versus lean mass. So things around that, which I know confuse people. And actually, interestingly, how muscle, it's not just about how much you've got of skeletal muscle, but actually the quality of that muscle and how that links to longevity and function and resilience, and what helps you build and maintain muscle in midlife and beyond. So, why is it your life insurance policy? It enables you to buffer absorb shock. So if you're going to fall over, then if you've got lots of muscle, then that helps. If you haven't, you're going to be much more likely to break a bone when you're older. And in fact, there are statistics around the fact that if you fall over and break your hip when you're older, I mean, that ends up being actually affecting your life expectancy. It stores and uses glucose. So the more muscle you have, that helps support insulin sensitivity. So particularly important in midlife when we can become insulin resistant if we're not careful. And then structural support. So the more muscle you have, skeletal muscle, it's obviously affixed to your bones. So if you've got more muscle, it helps pull your bones, and therefore functional health, against osteoporosis, joint support, balance, posture. So it is the key to longevity, absolute insurance policy for how long we want to stay functional. I heard some hideous statistic the other day that life expectancy is now up to, I think it's 83 or 84. The how well you live, that is 63, 64. So, you could have 20 years of living not very well and not enjoying it if you're not optimizing for actually longevity and wellness as well. So the muscle tax. So for those guys who are listening to this live, we do a lot on this. So you probably already know that as we hit perimenopause and menopause, we start losing muscle if we're not working to replace it. So there's something that's been coined by so the muscle tax, perimenopause and menopause, as we hit that age, that life stage, we really begin to lose that muscle mass unless we replace it. And there's this term that's been coined to describe what happens in menopause, that musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause. So it's used to describe that kind of combination of joint pain, muscle loss, bone loss, and that decreased repair capacity, which is largely linked to estrogen decline. So 47 million women go through menopause, 70% experience musculoskeletal symptoms, and 25% become like really disabled by them, according to the Journal of International Menopause Society. So it's particularly relevant now as we, loss of estrogen, muscle strength decrease, slower recovery, less anabolic signaling. So it's particularly relevant now because actually, if you can actually, once you start lifting weights, sorry, I've lost my thread. Let Sarah in. As you all know, if you're on this program, you can reverse all of that and guard against it by continuing to lift weights. So, hormonal shifts do accelerate the decline. If you don't start lifting, postmenopause women lose zero point 0.6 muscle mass per year. So, that window of opportunity is midlife. There's a really good book. that some of you might be interested in by Dr. Vonda Wright called Unbreakable, also a lot on Instagram. And she talks a lot, like I do, also about how you cannot get significant lean muscle gain or power in midlife unless you do targeted resistance with progressive overload. So much like me, Pilates and yoga are great, but you need that resistance training. But you might want to have a look. She's got this thing called the unbreakable score concept. So if you look it up on an app, you can actually take this score to show you, where you are in terms of your kind of muscle. So you might want to do that. It might be quite fun to do. So, skeletal muscle versus lean muscle mass. So, for anyone on the program, sometimes this can be quite confusing. In your check-in forms, if you're a one-to-one client, you get the form to say, what's your skeletal muscle? So, skeletal muscle is obviously that muscle that is attached to your bone, your skeleton, voluntary muscles. It's the tissue doing the work in your movement, your force, and your strength. Typically, it makes up 40% of our body mass. And then lean muscle is everything that's non-fat. So that includes your muscles, your organs, your water, and your bones. So it's everything. So that's why your lean muscle mass tends to obviously more than your skeletal muscle mass. But when you're lifting weights, what you're building is your skeletal muscle mass. So that's why I ask you for that on your forms. So someone can have a really high lean mass, but not be optimized for skeletal muscle because they might have more water retention, they might have more organ mass, so therefore their lean muscle mass might look really impressive, but if it's not borne out by your skeletal muscle mass, that's more important really as we're getting older. And also, lots of studies are now showing that it's the quality of your muscle also that makes a difference. So it's also how well it functions. So neuromuscular activation, fiber composition, all of those things are really important. So for people on my year-long programs, this is why the phasing will go into things where we'll be looking at that neuromuscular activation, lateral movement, all of that, because that improves the quality of your muscle. We're not just working in the same plane of movement. Um, and then, so how accurate are your home body fat muscle scales? So I think everybody here's got one. Yes, you've all got it now. I think you should all have it and you should all be using it. Um, so they're obviously not the most accurate thing is called a DEXA scan. And you have to, it's almost like an MRI scan that you kind of roll into it and roll out of it. And it does all these kind of things you can see on the right-hand side here. It gives you really in-depth readings, including, your muscle on particular areas of your body as well. But obviously really expensive. We can't all go off to hospital and go into a DEXA scan all the time. So home scales are really good as a trend, as using it in general. You're obviously going to get a difference as you go through from week to week, and that's good enough for where we are. In terms of how accurate it is in terms of actual skeletal muscle, it probably won't be as good, but it gives you a difference between week to week, and it does give you some accurate tracking. And combined with actually measuring what you're doing in the gym, that's an indication of your strength. As you increase your lifts, you're obviously demonstrating that you're increasing your strength in performance. So when you do use your scales, though, which is why I have it with your check-in forms, be consistent with when you do it. So you should be doing it at the same time each week. Try not to do it every day, otherwise it'll drive you mad. Same time every week. Try and do it the same, wear the same stuff. If you did it in the morning before breakfast, make sure you do it in the morning before breakfast again. Try not to switch all the time because that will directly impact your results. And then, therefore, they do give you some indication of, the effort you're putting in and seeing the results of those efforts. So the link between skeletal muscle and strength and longevity. So studies show that the higher your muscle mass, especially relevant to fat mass, your body fat percentage, predicts lower mortality, lower disease risk, and better function. So you're really looking at both body fat and muscle mass. But even more than that, your strength and movement capacity, which is affected by muscle. So we were talking earlier about go left to right movements, plyometrics, so your ability to jump and land and take off. All of that also helps to is more predictive of better health than just strength and movement alone. Strength, lean muscle mass, sorry. So gait speed, um, things like fast twitch and slow twitch. So we're all born genetically with fast twitch and slow twitch. Some of us tend to have more fast twitch, which means you'll be better at things like sprinting, fast movements. So maybe some of you like love sprinting, or say like when you were younger, oh, I love doing those short intervals. It might be because you were born with more fast twitch muscles. So I played loads of basketball and netball and did 400-meter running, so I've probably got more fast twitch. And then slow twitch make you very good at endurance type activities. Now, although genetically you can have more fast twitch to slow twitch, you can also develop them. So it is also about training. But as we get older, we start losing more fast twitch. And those fast twitch movements are the difference between, say, balancing and preventing falling. For instance, fast twitch will be that sudden movement to stop you falling. So we really want to make sure that we're developing fast twitch muscles as well, and we're working on that we don't just lose those. So again, the year-long program I do with you guys will be putting things like that in to develop that fast twitch muscles. It's slightly harder in terms of the conditioning. It's more challenging. So therefore, that's why at the start it's all about body confidence, building that stable foundations with slow twitch stuff, and then moving into more fast twitch, because that's a really helps to optimize your longevity. And even in older age, so even if you do start later on, studies show that resistance training has been shown to slow functional decline and preserve independence. So whenever you start is good, but starting now, as you guys are, is obviously the best. So muscle loss helps to, well, not helps, muscle loss speeds aging and fragility, frailty. So you have neuromuscular decline, so less efficient signaling between your kind of brain and body. Fat infiltration, so muscle replaced by fat and connective tissue lowers the quality of your muscles. Hormonal decline, biomarkers which shift unfavorably with inactivity. So exercise is associated with younger signaling in muscle tissue. So in a way, the more you exercise, the more your muscle kind of gets back that younger, younger signaling. Stem cell decline, mitochondrial dysfunction, disuse and inactivity. So that whole use it or lose it is really, really relevant. So what helps you build and maintain muscle, as you all know, progressive resistance training, as I was saying before, that kind of power and velocity work. So stuff that makes you, when I say plyometrics, that's that fast contractions decline with age. So that's why doing that fast contraction work really helps. So speed work. So some of you listening in may have done my SIT training, which is sprint interval training, which some of you have in your programs. Some of it you might end up getting skipping in some of your work. So all of that really helps to build those fast twitch muscles. It helps to manage your energy balance. So if you don't have sufficient calories, you need sufficient calories so that your body doesn't use your muscles to for fuel. So that's why I'm always going on sometimes with you guys when you're not eating enough, because actually what you're doing is losing that muscle. So every time you don't fuel your body sufficiently, you're not just losing fat, you're losing muscle. And therefore you can see that in terms of that impact on your longevity, it's really going to affect optimizing for your long-term health. So it's really, really important to eat sufficiently to fuel both muscle and your energy. So HRT, for instance, hormonal support can be really good to preserve muscular skeletal tissue during menopause. And then consistent training over time. So I'm always going on about consistency. It's so important. that you are consistent, because it's not just about doing like a trying to do like 1 week of perfect or really hard strength work. It's about doing it consistently. So muscle is like plastic. It's a bit like, you might have heard about neuroplasticity in your brain. So if you are constantly working, like learning a new language as you get older, doing something else, that keeps your brain, that neuroplasticity helps to keep the brain young. It's exactly the same with the muscles. The more you are consistent with it, the more, your muscles build. So recovery, sleep, stress control helps your muscles repair basically. Less inflammation. You absolutely need one without the one and the other. So for anybody here listening in who does like loads of stuff, rushes from one thing to another, and thinks, oh, that's great because the more I do, the better it is. It's not. It's about consistency, but recovery, and recovery can be yoga, it can be breath work, it can be walking, it can be sleep as well. That should be seen as part of your training. So it's not like I'm doing the workouts or I'm doing whatever sport you're doing, and the more I do of that, the better. It's actually thinking that your recovery times, which is why I put the yoga in, is absolutely part of your training that will affect your muscle and your body composition, and it will affect your long-term health. And then progressive neuromuscular challenges, so balanced stability, all that kind of work, which again, we develop in the Kick-Ass Midlife method as we go on in terms of like one-legged stuff, lateral movements, all of that. And what's really important is that you monitor an adaptation. So you always have to keep monitoring what you're lifting, keeping consistent with it. So actually, how and when you should be adjusting the loads, and you're able to periodize that training so that you're continuing to develop that muscle. Because we can't just stay still. If you are somebody that has spent ages going to group classes and felt like, oh, I haven't really seen much change, it's because what you're doing probably in those classes is maintaining, and you're not actually developing anything else. And then really avoid long inactivity spells. I don't know about you, but if you've got an elderly parent, my mum sometimes disappears to bed for like a couple of days, and now when I see her do that, I'm like, every time you do that, it's really bad for your muscle. So key takeaways is it's not just optional. It's not just something that you do because you want to look more toned and you want to look aesthetically better. It's actually one of the most important kind of organs, tissues for optimizing your health and longevity. It really is so important. Midlife accelerates that vulnerability. So you really need to make sure that you're on it now and forever. It's not just a now, just until I get to a certain look or a certain body fat composition. It's like something that should be part and parcel of your forever life. Use the scales as a trend, but remember to pair it with your measurements, which I always say to do, your photos, and also your strength metrics. So, okay, is my skeletal muscle saying one thing, but actually, if you're thinking, oh, I feel like I'm much stronger than that, pair it with the fact if you've gone from like, some of you have just done your test results between the phase one, week 1 and week 6. If you've gone from like, 15 kilos to 50 kilos, then obviously that's telling you that you've increased your skeletal muscle mass, even if maybe the scales are only a tiny bit different, because it is difficult to build muscle. So that's the other thing. If you're listening into this later, don't think, oh, well, I don't want to lift weights that heavy because I'm going to like really bulk up. I'm not kidding. If any of you have been doing this program for a while, you've seen your skeletal muscle, it is very difficult to get that skeletal muscle up. So you absolutely have no worry about suddenly bulking up. And focus on the fundamentals. So the fundamentals, it's not the supplements, it's not the anything like that. It's about building your strength. It's your nutrition, it's your recovery, maybe hormonal support, and that consistency. So that's your real insurance policy. So it's really not just about aesthetics, about your ability to be free to be adventurous, and it's your health for longevity further down the line.